Welcome everybody. In this illustration guide, we're going to show you how to draw the human eye in a realistic manner in pencil, and we're going to be discussing start to finish how to create that. So in part one, we're going to talk about perception versus memory. So here I'm going to start illustrating an eye based off of looking at a photograph of an eye. It could also be if someone was in front of me. So this is called perception, how I perceive something that I see. So I'm really paying attention to the angles of the eye, from the eyelids to the interior information like the iris and the pupil. On the upper sketch is going to be an eye that people typically draw more from memory, and it can get confusing. People can sometimes rely on their memory more than what they're seeing in front of them. So again, the lower sketch is based off this photograph here on the left, where I have plenty of information to show me the way. While if I'm just relying on my memory, I can fall into some bad habits with less detail and more simplistic features. So in the upper sketch here, I'm putting down some information that we all know is an eye, but it's much less detailed and much less realistic. So let's get rid of that one and focus on the one that has more details and the one that I have perception with, that I can focus on. So now we're going to start defining the space and defining the details. I'm defining the space where my eyebrow will take up before I do the hair work. I'm defining my eyelids and some smaller features. I'm also now going to start to build up the tone. Tone is the range of values that I see in front of me. So working in pencil, I'm going to build in the basic tone of the next darkest tone compared to a highlight, which is a light value. Always looking at my resource image. No matter if someone's sitting in front of me or if I'm looking at a photo, I'm responding to what that's telling me. I'm paying attention to what the information on my drawing is throwing back at me. And that really teaches me how dark I need to get, where I need to stay light. So I'm putting in these soft coats of light values, trying to preserve my highlights as much as possible, and then I can start to build up my darker tones. As I build up my darker tones, that's where I start to build three-dimensionality, more of a sense of form, and all these outlines you see in the beginning of the sketch start to go away as I build my values up. It's a fascinating thing. As you build values up, you start to separate segments and sections of an object, and you really start to get the illusion of three-dimensionality on a piece of paper. Again, studying the photograph of the eye gives me, I keep investing time in that, finding more information, plotting out where lighter tones need to exist, where more mid-tones, those medium values need to stand out. If I have a highlight that needs to stand out greatly, I can erase it back into the paper. If I have an area that needs to be a soft texture, I can use a blending tool such as the tortillon I'm using here, and to soften my textures on the cornea of my eye, and also inside my pupil and iris as well. A highlight stands out the most when it has strong contrast against it. So if you have a highlight that you're really having trouble building out, take a look to see if there's enough contrast against it, because the right contrast will give you the right amount of highlight. I'm using a paper towel here to soften some of the tones on the skin. It's a broad area, simple area, so using a small blending tool is not advisable. Just a little shortcut would just take too long. Stepping up, building some darker values, defining more edges, really reading into the information I'm pulling out of my photograph resource. You can spend immense amount of time building detail the more you look at an image. To start to document my eyebrow, I'm looking at the movement of the hairs, and I'm doing short to medium strokes of hair movement. And then I also take a look where the hair is clumping and getting darker, and I start to overlap more lines to suggest that. You do not want to create a shape when you're creating an eyebrow. You want to build hairlines in there to suggest the sense of the feeling of true hair. Coming back in, building more value, creating more contrast, helping more three-dimensional effects build, and now I'm softening again the skin tone there. Try to imply that texture. Now let's get into eyelashes. Eyelashes lift and flick out, and if you think about a clock, eyelashes as they move across an eyelid will move from usually 10 o'clock to 12 o'clock to 2 o'clock as they lift out. That's a good little reminder for the movement of eyelashes. Now I'm defining some outlined edges to support some of my details inside my eye. So the more you look, the more details you'll see as you discover your drawing. Lower eyelashes will bend down in a way too, typically from 6 o'clock to 4 o'clock, and also on the left side there, more like 7 o'clock. Part 3 is we're going to focus on the final details. This is where when you get to this point in the drawing, you are nitpicking. You're paying attention to where some highlights need to stand out, where some more blending needs to happen, and also where some details are in that you missed. For example, on the skin tone, pretty soon I'm going to notice under the eye there's these small little freckles that I'll be putting in. I'm defining some edges here next to the iris, enhancing some shadows. Constantly coming back and adjusting and reviewing and refining my drawing is key. It's what an artist does to satisfy that hunger of feeling complete with something. So these little dabs with the pencil here are going to suggest these little skin texture patterns. I'm going to use a blending tool to even soften them further to kind of help push them into the skin tone a little bit more and unify them. So as I finish up here, I might use an eraser to lift out a little bit now. A simple, some simple extra marks to build details. Here I'm just pulling out some additional highlights and cleaning up my drawing and finishing that up. Well, there you go. That's the final product right there. And give it a try. Let's see how you can do. Good luck.